welcome to Tricks of the S-Trade channel. Today is the 2nd of March 2018, and in today's video we're taking a good look at Adolf Hitler. Now Adolf Hitler happened to be one of the great stooges of the Vatican, and Adolf Hitler was single-handedly been made responsible for the Second World War. And according to history, the Second World War was caused by the First World War and some other things put together. Now, we're going to take a close look at the causes of the World War, both World War I and World War II. I think we've done this history before, I think on the Beyonce Part 2 video, but we didn't go into a lot of details in making people to understand what was the reason behind the First and the Second World War. We just made it like a general knowledge educational programming, just telling you that it was the Vatican that was behind it. But today we're going to get into the finer details to make you understand what's going on with the World War and what the causes were, the real causes, not the causes that the Vatican, which controls what we hear and what we see and what we read, want us to believe. So if it's your first time on the channel, I'd like to welcome you. But before you can continue on with this video, I would like that you should go pause this video right here and go look for the primer video. When you're done watching the primer video, you can come back and continue watching this video, because without you watching the primer video, a lot of things that I'm saying is not going to make any sense to you at all. You're going to have more unanswered questions, and you're not going to be able to understand what we're talking about on this particular video or any other video that you pick up to watch on this channel. So the primer video is the most important video for you to watch, and let me show you how to get to the primer video in a second. So for a new subscriber to the channel or someone very new watching any of our videos, the primer video is the most important video that you have to watch. The primer video is just called primer. There's a playlist for it. Sorry to say, it has like maybe 3 videos inside that playlist, which will help you answer a lot of your questions, so you can just get the right understanding on the channel. So when you click on the primer video or any video that you pick up on this channel, right, there's also a link in the description section. The link in the description section is going to take you to this document. The document is going to be called Male versus Female Visual Differences. It's pertinent that you have this document handy so you can at least know how to study the different genders and know in particular what differences lie with which. But the most pertinent difference, which you cannot fail on, always has to do with the back and the pelvis. So for a female always has hips below the crotch, and for a male is always going to have hips above the crotch. So those are the most significant differences between male and female, and that's how people are able to tell the genders of dead people from bones, because the difference in the human structure lies in the pelvis for both male and female. So since we're already neck deep into transvestigation, because today we're going to take a look at Adolf Hitler, I just have to show you the visual differences between male and female so we can carry on into Adolf Hitler. Now, this is a female to my left, and as you can see, she has an arch in her back. A female has an arch in her back because her pelvis is tilted forward, which is a necessary requirement for childbirth so that a child can stay inside the womb for the 9 months of conception that the child stays before coming into this world. So because of that, the female spine has to accommodate that arch and therefore bends and gives this female an arch in the back. The arch in the back is also significant to depending on the let's say the ethnicity. So for especially for, like, let's say people who have woolly hair, as the term would be, that they call them black, they might have more significant arches than people who have straight hair. So that's just that. But regardless, both of them, it doesn't matter where you come from, it doesn't matter the texture of your hair, there's always going to be an arch in your back if you're a woman, regardless. Some can be very subtle and some can be very, very pronounced. So remember, there's going to be a deep C arch in the back depending on where you draw the arch from. If you draw the arch from just below the rib cage and shoulder blades, it's going to form a deep C arch in a female's back. If you draw it higher up, all right, above the shoulder blades, let's say towards the shoulders, it's going to form an S-shaped spine. The arch is also extra support for the weight of carrying children, so that the weight of the body weight and the weight of the baby can be evenly distributed across the body, so that the woman doesn't have any problems walking, and she doesn't have any problems hurting the baby while doing so. So that's why a female has an arch in her back. Males do not have any arch in their back. Males have straight back. The back goes all this way straight down into the pelvis. There is no arch. If a man's back wants to arch, it's going to arch outwards like you see right here. Then that's just behind the shoulders. It's going to form a D or a P, but it's going to go straight down into the pelvis. There's no arch because males do not give birth. It's not a requirement for them to give birth, so they don't have an arch in their back. So the back of a man is going to be shaped like a D or a P. It's just going to be straight. Okay, so if you scroll further into the document, just to show you some other pictures so you can get accustomed to the fact that a female always has an arch in the back. As you can see right here, there's a female bending down, and you see that deep C arch in the back because the pelvis is still tilted forward. It doesn't matter if the female is big or small, she's got muscles, there's always going to be an arch in a female's back. So I scroll forward into the document just to show you that the height, the weight doesn't really matter. A female will always have an arch in the back. As you can see right here, there's a big female to my left. She has an arch in the back. Pelvis is tilted forward. A small female to my right, arch in the back, and pelvis is tilted forward. Small, big, arch in the back, pelvis tilted forward. And the next thing I'm going to show you later on is the hips, which is always going to be below the crotch, necessary for childbirth. So with female right here, muscular nature doesn't matter. So a female can pack up a lot of muscle. There's nothing you can do to change the skeletal structure. The skeletal structure remains the same regardless. Once that person has been conceived and that sex has been determined at conception, nothing can change that. So you're looking at a female right here. She has an arch in the back. She's a muscular female, built with a lot of muscle, but she still has an arch in the back, which is necessary for childbirth, and nothing can change that. Another muscular female, sorry to say, arch in the back. So let's go on and play the video clip, then we can come back and continue. It's going to be a long video, so I just have to let you guys know. It's not one of those short videos because we're going to be taking a closer look at the causes of the Second World War, even though we've put the real causes, not the causes that the Vatican wants us to believe is the causes of the First and Second World War. And we've put all this information in our book, which will be sending emails out very soon. So depending on the number of people we've had, we'll send you an email out and tell you what the cost of the book and the cost of shipping to get to you. So if you're interested in the book, if you have not yet subscribed to our email, because we'll talk about that later, the Vatican wants to shut us down and everything else. And if you're interested in the book, you have to send us an email with the title book. Our email is the same as the channel name at gmail.com. But let's continue on to show you the difference in the hip location between a woman and a man, so we can continue on with this long video that we are preparing to have. So this short clip is going to show you where the location of the female hip is at and how female's clothes are sewn, pants or whatever she wears. Like, you have to understand that a woman, you know, is shaped a certain way. She's shaped that way so she can give birth. And because of the way she's been built and designed to give birth, the female hip is always going to be below the crotch, as you're seeing right here in this picture, below the crotch. So with regular females, if you're a regular female, meaning that regular in the sense that you're shaped the way women are, in the sense that their hips are wider than your shoulders, then this is what you would see in a regular female. She will start spreading from underneath her elbows. She starts getting wider, and the widest point is always going to be the hips below the crotch. So this is how a female gets measured into clothes, and this is how clothes are sewn around the world so that a woman can fit regardless of where she's at, because they have to know the location of the hip, otherwise the clothes wouldn't fit. If a female had varying degrees, let's say varying places for the female hip, sewing the clothes and taking it all around the world would be a problem. The women wouldn't fit, and the designers of the clothes, the tailors, wouldn't have a job. So what you're seeing right here is the location of the female hip, which is below the crotch. Also, a female has a very acute Q angle because of the wider hips. Now, why do females have wider hips? Is because, one, the pubic arch of a female is wider than that of a man. It's usually 120 degrees or more. Why is the pubic arch wider? The pubic arch is wider so that a baby can come out of the womb. All right? So because of that wide pubic arch, it pushes everything further apart in the pelvis of a woman, apart. So that's why the hips are farther apart and they're below the crotch. Now the Q angle is the angle between the hip and the knee, and for females it's very, very acute. So let this lady turn around so you can see from the back where the location of that hip is at from the back. As you can see right there, it's slightly above the bum line right here, but below the crotch. If this was male, this distance right here would be farther apart because the Q angle of man would be farther up in the body, all right, or farther up, sorry, in the pelvic area. So the Q angle would be higher up and this distance would be farther apart. So you can tell from the back when you're looking at someone if it's male or female because of the Q angle. So with the Q angle of a female, it's always going to be below the crotch. For males, it's always going to be above the crotch. So if you have difficulties in trying to look at someone's pictures from the front, trying to distinguish if you're looking at a male or female, try to see if you can find a picture from the back. Because once you see the picture from the back, you're going to be able to tell if you're looking at a male or a female. So let's move on. So before I go any further in the video, this is a different kind of channel. I just have to let you guys know that this is an educational channel. We don't deal with gossip. So a lot of channels out there deal with gossip. They just say whatever they want to say. They have no facts to back it up. On our channel, you have to back up what you say. All right. So first of all, the warning is that on this channel, you cannot say that someone is a transgender without facts. You can't even bring the person's name up by a mistake and say, oh, I think I heard that this person is a transgender. We've heard it on another channel. If you say that, you're going to get blocked on this channel. So the proper way to ask the question, if you want to know if someone is a transgender, you heard, is send us an email. The email is the same as the channel name at gmail.com, and then we can talk about it. But if you do not have facts, all right, do not bring up the person's name in the comment section, even if it's a question, like saying, I want to know, for example, if so-and-so is a transgender. Don't say it in the comment section, because doing so allows other, so-called trolls and agents of the Vatican to pick up on that information and start trying to bring about gossip and the wrong kind of information or disinformation that confuses people. So we want people to learn on the comment section even too, just by reading. Okay, so when you get up on this channel, you just can start running things off your mouth without having facts. Free speech does not mean that you say whatever you want to say. That's what the Vatican has trained people to believe. But it's not true. Free speech means that you say what you want to say, but have the facts to back it up. It's just, for example, someone starts spreading false rumors around you, saying that you're a thief. And everybody in the office that you're working or your friends heard this rumor. And the person has never backed it up to say, okay, this is what you stole, this is what the events that has transpired, and this is how we caught you stealing. But they just keep saying you're a thief. That isn't right. It damages someone's reputation. It doesn't give you the chance to, to defend yourself. So why should we be doing it also? So you have to be responsible for the things you say. All right? Because as we've talked about this before, people learn by what they hear, what they read. Okay? So that's how we learn. So if you start keeping spreading false information every time you get a chance, then we can never ever get to know the truth about what's going on. So if you want to call or label someone a transgender on our channel, you have to provide facts based on the female skeletal structure. What does that mean? You have to provide links of pictures in your question. If you're questioning about someone's gender, if you're trying to make a comment about the person that's related to that person's gender, you have to provide links of pictures based on the female skeletal structure. Show the links, attach the links to the comments and say, this is why I think this person is a transgender, because this person does not have hips below the crotch, does not have an arch in the back, does not have a pelvis that's tilted forward, and does not have a wide pubic arch, which is necessary for childbirth, which distinguishes the sexes. If you start your comments off by saying this person is a transgender because they have long arms, long torsos, long or ring index fingers, they have strong jawlines, they look mannish, they act mannish, they walk mannish, or they look womanish, they have a brow bossing, they have a sloping forehead, they have thick lips or thinner lips, they have an Adonis belt, and all those genetic markers or gender markers that have nothing to do with childbirth, we are going to get you blocked. A woman having facial hair like a man does not prevent her from giving birth. That's happened, I think, in the case of, I don't quite remember if it's Chair, I don't know if it's a daughter of Chair who transgendered to a male or something like that, has facial hair or gave birth. But I think it's some story like that. Facial hair has nothing to do with childbirth. A woman can have facial hair and still give birth. A woman can have an Adam's apple and still give birth. A woman can have long arms and still give birth. A woman can have a ring or index finger longer than the other and still give birth. A woman can have a strong jawline and chin and still give birth. A woman with an Adonis belt can still give birth. A woman with wider shoulders than her hips, which doesn't change the location of the hips because it's always going to be below the crotch, can still give birth. The only thing that can stop a woman giving birth is that her hips are above the crotch, which means she's male. Hips above the crotch means you're male. A straight back means you're male. So those are the only things that you can allow, that we can allow, sorry to say, on our channel if you're trying to identify or question the gender of someone. Any other thing is considered slander. All right, so that's the first warning I have to put out. The second warning is that this might be a long video. So if you're not interested in sitting through a long video, because a lot of people go to the movie theater and watch all the crap and nonsense that the Vatican pumps out there and pay for it, okay? They sit maybe 2-3 hours of movie that they've paid for. But on this channel, you're getting the movie free and you're complaining. Isn't that weird? See how dumbed down the Vatican has dumbed down the public? Such that things that they can get educated for and get real information for and real news from, they're complaining about that it's too long. So that's the other one that I have to put out, that the video may be a long video. Now, what you're looking at on your screen right here is a strike on account. For no apparent reason, YouTube, which is owned by the Vatican, put this strike on account for a video is called the Selena Q Quintanilla Perez transgender transsexual video. If you look at the content of this strike that they put, they said violation of YouTube's policy on nudity and sexual content. It did not put the minute mark on where the nudity was contained in the Selena Q video. Why didn't they put the minute mark? Because it doesn't exist. The Vatican is trying to shut us down because we're telling you the truth. We don't know how long this channel is going to be up, but because they are constantly trying to shut us down. Now, people, I have to let you guys know about something right here. From the next couple of weeks, down till whenever the Vatican tries to shut us down, the videos that we're going to be showing is going to be very, very shocking and very, very revealing. So what we're going to do, because we don't know when we're going to start that series, and the next couple of videos are going to be mind-boggling. It's going to just blow your mind, all right? What we're thinking is doing is that we're going to put the videos on a file share, and we're just going to give you a link to go download it. It's not going to be up on YouTube, all right? When the time comes to make those shocking videos, we'll just send you just a short clip just to give you directions on how to get the video, the main video itself, from YouTube. Because the Vatican is hard at work trying to make us to keep quiet from telling you guys the truth, which you guys ought to hear. Now, concerning the Selena Q video, if you're interested in watching the Selena Q video, for which we have a strike, this strike on account for no apparent reason because we didn't break any of YouTube's violations, we advise that you go look for the Bono video on this channel. Who is Bono video? It's going to give you instructions on how to watch the Selena Q video. And that's how the rest of the videos that we are going to be making in the future is going to be look like, because it's going to be very, very shocking. It's just some personal stuff that you need to watch on your own, because we don't want to make the information so broadcast on YouTube. So we want to give the channel enough time for it to, you know, stay as long as possible, even though the Vatican is hard at work trying to shut us down. Also, we're putting all this information in the book. Like what you're going to be watching about Adolf Hitler today is in a book. The book is going to be more detailed about the story of the wars than what you're watching on the video. So this is part of the book that you're watching. If you watch any other videos, if you've watched, because we have a catalog of videos, if you've watched any other videos, we carry bits of information out from the book, from the videos, and just put it on the video. But we don't go into detail because there are certain things that we can't say on the video, but we can say it all in the book because it's private. It's just you and a book. So we put all this information in the book, and we're going to be sending emails out very soon. So if you did send us an email and you were interested in the book, you're going to be receiving an email very soon about the price and the cost of shipping. If you haven't sent us an email already, do send us an email with the title book. You still have a chance because the book now is in print. We still have a chance to get a number of copies in. So if you send us an email, we'll print another copy out for you. Then we'll let the publisher know, okay, we have like 10 more requests. Could you print 10 more for us? So send us an email if you're interested in the book, because we're putting all this information in detail that's going to make you understand your world and what's going on. So email is the same as the channel name, gmail.com, and just title it book. And also send us an email because we're working on a website, because we know sooner or later, because the Vatican is trying to find ways to shut us down, like right here, they are landing strikes for no apparent reason, that we haven't broken any of their guidelines. And as you can see, they didn't put the minute mark on where we had the infringement on the Selena Q video. So send us an email also, because we're working on a website. And when the website is ready, we'll send you an email and say, okay, here is our website. Go out there. We have all that information. We're not, YouTube is not going to be able to, or the Vatican is not going to be able to shut us down that much easily. All right. So our website is under construction. So send us an email also, so that we can have you in our email list. And we're working with so many other things down the road, which will give you through correspondence and email. So let's move on to Adolf Hitler. Like I said, it's going to be a long video, so if you can't sit through it, all right, you can just pause the video and just quit and go. So let's get started. Before I start the video, I would like to send a special thanks to someone by the name of Amy. Amy, I believe you know who you are. You're a great subscriber. Keep doing what you're doing and keep learning. Amy brought Adolf Hitler to our attention. We would never have bothered to take a look at Adolf Hitler if not for Amy. Okay, so Amy, thank you so much. So let's move on. So to start off the video, there are some concepts that I need to make people understand. This is all part of whatever you're listening to on this video is all part of the book. Okay. So like I've said, if you're interested in the book, just send us email. You still have a couple of, let's say, limited time to get a copy for now. Because like I said, we're only going to be printing the book, making the book available to, according to the number of emails we have. If we have more emails in the future, then we'll get some more. Okay. And if you can order more than one copy or 2 copies, 3 copies, just depending on how much how many you want. After we send you the price and the cost of shipping, we'll ship the book to you anywhere you are in the world, as long as you have a shipping address that we can mail to. So what you're looking at the screen is right here is something on Google that I typed in to explain what I'm going to say next. It says the most populous black nation in the world. Now, why did I have to put that up on the screen? I'm trying to make you understand that history is very, very important. Okay? Now, people don't understand how wonderful and how important history is, because the Vatican doesn't want you to know how important it is. Okay? Now, here is what history is all about and why history is so important. If you say your name is John, let's say John was a very rich man, okay? And John was very rich, was wealthy, had millions of dollars in his account, had property all over the state or all over the world. And John lost his memory today, right? John lost his memory today and found out that he woke up in Canada. Let's say John is from the United States and he woke up in Canada after losing his memory. And where he's at, the people who are treating him, maybe let's say he woke up in some sort of facility that he was brought to because they found him maybe wandering about and delirious, didn't know where he was, and they took him down to a facility. And the guys in the facility tell John that your name is Sean. And or let's say for some odd reason they just let's say, made a mistake and took the identity of someone who's called Sean. They assume that he's Sean because maybe they found him with some sort of identity card that says Sean, and they tell him your name is Sean, all right? And Sean wakes up from this Canadian hospital, and he's taken into, maybe someone takes him into his home and feeds him and calls him Sean. Now, Sean has lost his memory, okay? So he doesn't know that his name is John, that he's very wealthy, that he has properties in the United States and a lot of places, and he has like maybe $1 million in his account. So what am I saying? What am I trying, the narrative? What's the narrative of that story right there? History is your memory. If you do not have a history, okay, you do not know who you are. History is the most important thing in the world. If you're going for a job interview, what you present to the person who's interviewing you is your history. Sometimes they call it work history. Your resume is your history. Because without a history, you cannot say that you are the person that you claim. That's how important history is. So the Vatican is so much interested in fabricating a false history for you, because it knows that if you do not know who you are, all right, then you cannot lay claim on what you own. So going back to the example of John, who lost his memory and is now Sean. Sean cannot claim that $1 billion or $1 million in his account because his name is Sean. He does not have a memory. He does not have a history. Sean cannot claim that he owns several properties in the United States where he lived because he doesn't know who he is. So now the person who gave John the name Sean is controlling Sean's life because he's given Sean a new identity. Because Sean doesn't have any memory of being John. So that's why history is the most important thing that you should immerse yourself into. Because without history, you're a nobody. And anybody who is responsible for writing your history is running the course of your life at your own detriment. So that is why the Vatican is so much interested in giving us false history. Now, when you're studying history, the most important way to know if it's a truth or it's a lie is the timeline. That's why you have that's why you're looking at this screen right now, because I want to explain something to you that should make you understand this even more. Timeline, they say time never lies. If someone tells you the truth or is telling you a lie, the time will always tell you the truth. What am I saying? Okay? When studying events that are happening around the world and trying to get to the true history of events, what you have to study is the timeline. The timeline will tell you if the history you're studying is real, it's fabricated, or it's fake. The time will not lie because people cannot lie about time. If we say it's 7 o'clock right now, it's 7 o'clock everywhere in the world because the time will tell you it's 7 o'clock. You can't say it's 8 o'clock when it's 9 o'clock. The time will always tell you the truth. So that's the best way I can explain it. So why am I starting with this question here, the most populous black nation in the world? Because I want to explain the concept of how stupid the concept of race, which has been introduced by the albinos in the Vatican. If you've heard the term me saying albino, I want you to understand that anybody who has straight hair is an albino. Okay? If you're interested in that information, get on the channel and look for the myth of whiteness. When you watch the myth of whiteness, we have so much, several parts of it on the channel. Then you will have a perfect understanding of what I'm saying. So, the Vatican all right, introduce a concept of race into the world that has never existed before. All right. And I want to explain how crazy this concept is. So I typed in this question on Google and asked Google the question, the most populous black nation in the world, because I want to explain something to you about how stupid and crazy race concept has been that we even believe it. For example, in the United States of America, they have this concept of race from the Census Bureau. It defines people as white, black or African American, American Indian, Alaska Native, Asian, Native Hawaiian, or other Pacific Islander. Now, if you go through this concept, you can see that white supremacy is always at work everywhere. For example, you say someone is white. The right term here should be albino, because the truth about race is this: race puts people in only two categories. So the whole idea of saying white, black, African American, American Indian, Alaskan Native, Asian, Native Hawaiian, or other Pacific Islander is false. The Vatican, the albinos from Asia, which happen to be the guys who are running the world right now, because their origins are from Asia, know this, but they're playing mind games on the people by saying people are white, black, African American, American Indian, Asian, Native Hawaiian, or Pacific Islander. And as you can see here, white is the first thing they mention, because white supremacy is at work. Why didn't they mention Asian, American Indian, Native Indian, or Pacific Native Hawaiian, or other Pacific Islander first? Because it's about white supremacy. It has to be named first. So even in the construct of them telling you about race, white supremacy is at work. White over black. They could have put American Indian first, Asian or Native Hawaiian, but they put white. And the right term here should be albino, because that's where the word comes from. Now, they say here a person who's albino, because I'm reading it correctly, is a person having origins in any of the original peoples of Europe, which is false, the Middle East, or North African. Because the term white had no origin in Europe. It had no origin in the Middle East or North Africa. This term white came from Asia. If you're outside of Asia, all right, and you happen to have straight hair, and you're not in the continent of Asia, all right, the people who are responsible for you being the way you are is the Vatican. Because the Vatican are from Asian, they went into Europe. From Europe, they went around the world, okay, breeding white people by killing the native aboriginal peoples of all continents, raping the women, all right, and using racism to maintain the breeding out of black woolly-haired aboriginal people. That's just truth. So if you're outside of Asia and you have straight hair, the Vatican most likely produced you through that process. That is a fact. If you're woolly-haired and you're black in any of the countries, right, and you know for a fact that you did not immigrate down there, all right, besides the false notion that, you know, all black people came from, you know, Africa, that is where you are from. That is your native land. It's just that your history has been changed because the Vatican engineered a false history which a lot of woolly-haired people around the world have come to accept and believe that they are African when they are not. We put all this information in the book and we clearly explain it so you understand. So everything I'm saying right here is just a snippet from the book. All right. So going back to this, what I was trying to say earlier before, the concept of race puts us in only two categories. You either have woolly hair, are considered black, or you have straight hair. So this false narrative of five races or so that the Vatican uses to run the world is false. They just don't want you to see the trick behind it, because the concept of race only puts you in two categories. All right? How does it put you in two categories? Let's say, for example, that you have a black person who has woolly hair and very light skin, because you have a lot of light skinned people with woolly hair. Now, if the concept of race was to be, used appropriately, the person with woolly hair would say he is white. But he will not be accepted as white. Why? Because it's the hair that determines who you are. We all know that. If someone says he's white or black, you look at the hair. It's the hair that determines if this person is telling you the truth or not. Because once you see woolly hair, you're going to say, no, you're light skinned, but you're black. That is the truth. But the Vatican wants you to believe in the 5 races to cover up that fact that race only puts us in 2 categories. Now, imagine, for example, let me give you another typical example, okay? Let's say someone from native Hawaii, because the native Hawaiians, the real native Hawaiians, had woolly hair, and the Pacific Islanders, all right? Let's say someone from that Hawaii who still has that woolly hair that his ancestors, great ancestors had before the albinos from Asia came into Europe and started, killing off the woolly haired aboriginals and raping the women and changing the genetic construct of those people. Let's say that woolly haired Hawaiian came to the United States and a cop pulled him over and he told the cop, I am from Hawaii. And the cop looks at him and he has woolly hair. He's going to say, you're black. He's going to write down on the paper that you're black. So all that explanation of you saying you're from Hawaii won't count. Let's say there is an Asian also, okay? Because there's some still Asians that still have woolly hair who haven't been bred out yet. So let's say, for example, you're in Asia, in places like Thailand and the Philippines and the Andaman Islands, and I think which other place in Asia still have woolly haired people? I think some Malaysians, but very few. Okay, there are natives. They didn't come from Africa or any place like that. They still have all the Asian features. It's just that their hair is woolly. Let's say that woolly Asian from Thailand, because I think in Thailand, I think they call them Mano Thailand people. Say that Mano person came to the United States, or he was somewhere in Europe or the United States, for example. And a cop pulls him over and he tells the cop, I am Asian. The cop will only look at his hair and say, no, you're black, because the hair is woolly. So how about people from North Africa? Because the original inhabitants of North Africa, which is now claimed to be albino here by this construct right here, were woolly-haired blacks. Let's say there are still some woolly-haired North Africans in North Africa. So let's say somebody came from North Africa, from a place like Morocco, has woolly hair and everything else, and he came to the United States and a cop pulled him over, and he told the cop, I am from the Middle East, because we have a lot of Middle Easterners which still have woolly hair in places like the United Arab Emirates. I've been to all these places, so when I'm talking about it from a point of experience, okay? And this person now says, okay, I am from North Africa, which is claimed to be an albino under the racial construct of being white right here. The person's going to look at him, the cop's going to look at him and say, the hair says you're black. So even though you say you claim to be white from Middle East or North Africa, you're black. He's going to write down black. Why? The hair. So the concept of race in the first place is false. This designation of white, black, or African American, American Indian, Alaskan Native, Asian, Native Hawaiian, or other Pacific Islander is actually false. Because race only puts us in 2 categories. You either have woolly hair or you have straight hair. And if you have straight hair, you're not black. Even though your parents, let's say, for example, your parents, right? Maybe you had a parent that's an albino. He married a black person, all right? And the black person probably has maybe some sort of he carries genetic traits of albinism. And the daughter or son they gave birth to came out to be, having straight hair. Okay? because you have to understand there is no middle ground in hair. It's either woolly hair or it's straight. There's no middle ground. So this person comes and says, because he has maybe somebody who's a black parent that has woolly hair, and he's out with friends, and he tells his other friends that he's black. Let's say, let me put it right. He's not with friends. He's out somewhere, right? And somebody calls him and says, "Hey, come over here." And he starts explaining, or maybe they're getting to a conversation, and he says, "I'm black." They're gonna look at the hair. The hair isn't woolly, even though you have a black parent, a black woolly haired parent, but your own hair isn't woolly. So when you say you're black, they're gonna look at you like, you're not sure, because the hair is straight. So it's the hair that determines this actual concept of race that we've been lied to. Race only puts us in two categories. You're either black or you're not. You either have woolly hair or you're not. So this concept of race is false. Now, to even explain how more crazy the concept of hair is, let's go back to this question in which I pulled on earlier, which says the most populous black nation in the world. Now, the most populous black nation, and let's say what the Google search results I was saying black nation in the world. Let's find out Google search results here on what it says. It says currently the 7th most populous country in the world, a West African nation, is projected to surpass the 300 million people mark by 2050, according to the World Population Prospects 2017. And the article here says here Nigeria to surpass the U.S. as world's 3rd most populous country, CNN. Let's see here. I want to pull up something. Welcome to the most populous black nation in the world. I'm trying to get the right result here. Okay, let's use this one. It says the 10 most populated countries in Africa World Atlas. I click on that. It says the 10 most populated countries in Africa. Nigeria is Africa's most populated country, followed by Ethiopia, Egypt, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. So he says here that Nigeria is the most populated black nation in the world. So to explain the concept of how crazy race is, let's say, since we know that Nigeria right here has the most populated black nation. That means Nigeria is predominantly made of woolly-haired people. That's the right way to put it. Let's say that 2 Nigerians, a male and a female, all right, a couple, the right way. The 2 Nigerians give birth to a baby with straight hair, pale skin, and blue eyes, which woolly-haired people do all the time. And these people are in Nigeria. So imagine that this child that they have given birth to, because the child has pale skin, has straight hair, has blue eyes, says that he or she is European because she has straight hair, blue eyes, pale skin, but is in Nigeria. And the child says, I am European. Will that make that child a European in actuality? I want you guys to think about that question. The child is born in Nigeria, right? Child is born in Nigeria, has straight hair, and speaks one of the many Nigerian languages that you have. Will that make that child European? Because the child has straight hair, pale skin, and blue eyes. Of course not. It won't. She is still in Nigeria. She is a Nigerian. That is how crazy the concept of race is. It's made people to believe that because you have straight hair and pale skin, that you are not the same human being, all right, as the woolly-haired people who gave birth to you. That's how crazy the concept of race is. that because you're pale skin, you have straight hair, that you are not of the tribe, of the country, of the woolly-haired parents who gave birth to you. I've seen this thing acted out in a movie. It's a very old movie. I don't quite remember the name. I think it's in that kind. I don't remember if it got Sidney Poitier or an American actor in there. It's a very old movie. I've watched it by accident maybe a couple of times, but I've never quite finished it. What happened in the story was like two parents. The parents were actually black with woolly hair, American parents, gave birth to this baby that had straight hair and pale skin. It's a very old movie, and the child growing up started saying that the parents were not her parents. She started denouncing them, and she moved out. And everywhere she went, she was described to be white. She lived in a white neighborhood, according to the movie, had white friends. And then every time her parents would try to get in contact with her and just tell her to come back home, because she was living such a crazy life, thinking about that she wasn't black anymore. It's a very old movie. I don't quite remember the name. If somebody could remember the name of the movie, I would like to know. But it's very old. I've watched it a couple of times, but I've never watched it till the end because I just watched it like bits and pieces of it. So that is how crazy the concepts of race is. That it can make certain people believe that they are not, all right, black, all right? They did not come from black people to believe that they're different. And the Vatican has introduced race, all right, to use to their own benefit, which only benefits the elite because it doesn't benefit anybody else. The concept of race only benefits the elite because they want a population that supports them so that in one generation they don't get bred out by woolly-haired people. That is just the reason for race. Because if there was no racism in this world, in one generation, that means in 100 years, starting to count from 2017, you would have fewer people with straight hair and albinic skin in the world. Because the woolly hair and darker skin is the predominant gene, is the dominant gene of humanity. That's what humanity was made of. So let's going back to making you understand how to study history. Now let's show you some certain things that you have to study the timeline if you have to know the truth of what's been going on in your world. So I'm going to take you to another website. For every website right here, you could pause the link at any, pause the video at any point in time and copy out that link. If I didn't show you before, you can pause this video right here and go copy out this link. But I don't think this is necessary. I just wanted to show you some information. But for the next link, here's the next link right here. And this link says the Transatlantic slave trade. The transatlantic slave trade is a fabricated slave trade. It never existed, and we give you so much details inside the book so you can understand. Now, I'm just gonna, whatever I'm saying right here, like I said, is a snippet from the book. So I'm gonna give you this explanation of how false the transatlantic slave trade is. You find this in more detail in the book, but I'll just give you a short snippet. Now, you guys have probably watched a movie called Amistad, right? Now, Amistad was acted by, let me see if I can remember the name of the actor. It's directed by Steven Spielberg. I think the guy who's the main character is called, is it Jimon Hunso? I think that's his name, Jimon Hunso. Now, Jimon Hunso, if you watch the movie for the first 5 minutes, all you need to watch the Amistad movie is for the first 5 minutes. You would see that these guys were in loincloths on a ship. Let me tell you how stupid the Vatican is. I wonder who fabricates the lies for them. It's just crazy. So, in this particular movie, directed by the great Steven Spielberg, another stooge of the Vatican, if you watch 5 minutes into the movie, you'll see that the guys on the ship are in loincloths on a ship coming all the way from Africa to the Americas. Now, what they forgot to tell you in that movie is that the Atlantic, all right, is very, very cold. The Atlantic is like close to like almost close to like 0 degrees Celsius, and some places like -8 and above, all right, which is very, very cold. The movie forgot to put clothes on the so-called slaves that they brought all the way from the Atlantic on ships down to the United States. Why? Because they wanted to portray to you that these Africans in loincloths are jungle animals, which they claim that all black woolly-haired people are. So, in trying to fabricate the lie of telling you about the transatlantic slave trade ships, they forgot to let you know that nobody can survive the Atlantic in loincloths. If there's anybody here who's in fishing, if you have a fisherman who fishes, or anybody else who's been shipping stuff or been ferrying yourself across the Atlantic, you know that there's no way you can survive in the Atlantic with loincloths. It doesn't matter how low down in the deck you are. You're gonna die because it's pretty cold on the seas. So in fabricating that lie, in trying to tell you that the truth about the transatlantic slave trade, they forgot to put clothes, which shows you that they are lying, because nobody can survive that journey in loincloths across the Atlantic. You need heavy clothes and you need a lot of heating. And those ships way back then had none of that. If you had to have that kind of heating in your cabin, you were very, very rich. But the way they made the ship to portray the transatlantic slave trade as truth, they show you that these guys were in chains and shackles, in loincloths, and they were shipped all the way from the Atlantic down. They would all die. Africans are strong, but they're not that strong to survive that kind of cold, because the Atlantic is very, very cold. So that's how these people, because you're watching the movies without thinking about what you're seeing, you just accept what's being told to you, without stopping to think for a second. Is it true that somebody can sail across the Atlantic in loincloths with no covering against the cold, the merciless cold of the Atlantic, and survive all the way to the United States or the Americas as they made it to be? The transatlantic slave trade never happened. The actual voyages of those people that they label as the transatlantic slave trades were woolly-haired European people. The first people that ever came to the Americas were woolly-haired people. The albinos came later on the back of those guys after they had taken over Europe. All right. They made the woolly-haired people who are now slaves and servants to them now, to bring them down to the United States. They followed after the other woolly-haired people like Christopher Columbus, who had come earlier. All right? So that's why in so many movies, if for example, let me just break it down a little further. I put all what I'm saying is inside the book. In the movie, there are so many movies out there that you can watch. You would find out there is what they called a house. I'm not going to say the remaining part of the word, but you guys know what I'm talking about. A house black man in a movie. That's the term. Now, if you notice, in so many movies that portray the house black man, the house black man was always very, very wicked to other black slaves in the movie. Why is that? You would also notice that the house black man dressed a certain way in those movies, different from the other slaves that he was over. Why is that? Because the house black man was of European origin. He came as a servant under the albinos from Asia who had taken over Europe in the 1500s when they started to rule. So that's why the house black man was always mean to other black slaves in those movies, because he was not of the same origin with them. He thought he was superior. We could get into fine details in explaining all that in the book, but let's get back to talking about the timeline in how you study history, so you understand what's going on, because I said this was going to be a long video, and it is going to be a long video. Now, it says here the transatlantic slave trade began in the mid-15th century, all right, when Portuguese interests in Africa moved away from the favorable deposits of gold to a much more readily available commodity. Now, why is this? Why did deposits move away from gold? This history goes back to the Crusades. I don't think maybe I don't have time to explain it on this video, but the history of gold being a problem to the world started back in the Crusades. The reason why the world is the way it is today, and that is run by the white supremacists, or I call them the right name, the albino supremacists, is because of the Crusades. Okay, let's get into details on why the Crusades is the reason why the world is run by the albino supremacists. Much more detail in the book. Without the Crusades, they would never have overran Europe and run the world today. It's the Crusades that helped to bring that into fruition, and we explain all that fine detail. So you still have a time to send us an email if you want to be one of the first recipients of the book. Just send us an email and you get all. We explain that much more inside the book. Email is the same as channelname@gmail.com. But getting back into this article right here, it says this says the transatlantic slave trade began around the mid-15th century. So time never lies. So I want you to put that in your memory. The 15th century is when the slave trade began. Why did it have to begin in the 15th century? So I'm trying to make you understand how to ask questions and get answers when studying history to know if it's fake or not. Why did it have to begin in the 15th century? Why didn't it begin, let's say, maybe let me say in the 10th century, the 9th century, or the 11th century? Why did it begin in the 15th century? Because in the 15th century is the time that the albinos from Asia started running the world via the Vatican. Now, keep this in mind. It says 15th century. Let me pull you over to another question that's going to another article that's going to make you understand this more. So this article is about historical concepts of race. You can pause the video at any point in time and copy out this link and go read up on it. Historical concepts of race. It says, the concept of race as a rough division of anatomically modern humans has long and complicated history. The word race itself is modern and was used in the sense of nation. Okay? So I want you to see how we don't even know what the word means, because race today is being told to us is that you're either white, black, native, Hawaiian, or the rest of the case might be as I showed you earlier. But the concept, the word race, was used to imply nation. Does this look like nation to you right here? You're white, black, or African American, American Indian, Alaskan, Native, Asian, Native, Hawaiian, or other Pacific Islander right here? It doesn't. Okay, so let's go back. So I keep on reading, so you guys should notice this. It says the word race itself is modern and was used in the sense of nation, ethnic group. So race was used to define your ethnicity. Does this look like ethnicity to you? White, black, African American, Asian, Native, Hawaiian? No, because ethnicity has to do with language. It has to do with tribe. Let's go back and reading. It says here, the word race itself is modern, was used in the sense of nation, ethnic group during the 16th to the 19th century. So it started being used in the 16th or 19th century. So I'm trying to show you how these people tell you lies. They tell you the truth, first of all, that race was used in the sense of nation or ethnic group. But now it says it began during the 16th century. If it was used during nation, if race meant nation or ethnic group, it should not begin in the 16th to 19th century, because there's always been a nation, there's always been an ethnic group. Does it make sense? So this is how these people tell you lies without you noticing, because you're not reading, you're not thinking about what you're reading. So what this article is trying to tell you right here is give you the timeline of when the word race came into effect, and when it coincides also with the time of the transatlantic slave trade. The 15th century is the same as the 16th right here. Now let's read on so you can understand some other things in this particular article. So I'm still down in the same article, right? It says entomology. The word race, interpreted to mean an identifiable group of people who shared a common descent, was introduced into English in 1580. So this concept of race was introduced, was now made known, all right, in 1580, which coincides with the time of the transatlantic slave trade. So what is this showing you? That race never existed until 1580. So if it was a concept that's new, that means someone introduced it. So why did the person introduce it? Who were the people that introduced it? The timeline here shows you the actual time when the albinos from Asia, who like calling themselves white today, started running the world in the 1500s, because they introduced it into the English language. Now, let's continue on reading a little bit more down here so you can see some of the things that I want you to take notice of from. It says here, let me say, it was introduced into English in about 1580 from the Old French raza, from Italian raza, and earlier, but etymologically distinct word for similar concept was the Latin word genus. Let's show you some other stuff in here. So you can see how crazy these albinos from Asia have turned the world upside down. It says in early history, still on the same article, pause the video at any point in time and just go Google Wikipedia historical race concepts, or just copy out that link right there and go read up on it, okay? It says early history. It says in many ancient civilizations, individuals with widely varying physical appearances became full members of society by growing up within that society or by adopting that society's cultural norms, okay? So it goes on to say, classical civilizations from Rome to China tended to invest the most importance in familial or tribal affiliation than an individual's physical appearance. So that goes back to what I was trying to say earlier, that to a couple in Nigeria, all right, is predominantly black with woolly haired people, give birth to a child, all right, and the child has straight hair and pale skin and blue eyes, which is a full which means that child has received the full albino genetic materials. Once you see blonde hair, that means the child has full albino genes, genetic traits working in him or her. That's what blonde hair means. It can have an ability to tan or not. Okay, so the example now says that I'm trying to say, it says that this couple in Nigeria with woolly hair give birth to this child that has pale skin, blonde hair, blonde straight hair, and blue eyes. Can that child claim to be European because he or she has pale skin, straight hair, and blue eyes? No, it can't. Because race had nothing to do with your physical appearance. It was based on what tribe you came from, what language you spoke. It wasn't based on how you look. At this concept right here that you're looking at, from the very mouths of the people who introduced race into the world. We did not write this, they wrote it. It says here, classical civilizations from Rome to China intended to invest the most importance in familial or tribal affiliation than an individual's physical appearance. It says societies still tend to equate physical characteristics such as hair and eye color with physiological and moral. This is just some nonsense. I don't want you guys to pay any attention to that. What I want you to pay attention to is that civilizations, that means when you say classical civilizations, means all civilizations around the world, always tended to invest the most importance in the person's tribe than an individual's physical appearance. So the concept of race today is based on individuals' physical appearance. It's no longer tribal. So if they were practicing the real concept of race, all right, there will be no such thing as this nonsense over here, which only puts us in two categories, making you either white black or African American, which is all fake, because it only puts us in two categories, that you're either, the individual's appearance is either woolly haired or with straight hair, and that's it. So let's jump back on Adolf Hitler now to make you understand the causes of the First and Second World War, which Adolf Hitler, a stooge who has been masquerading around as a female, in which the world, oh sorry, did I say masquerading around as a female? Masquerading around as a male, which the world has been made to believe was actually not a man at all. He was a woman. So let's do that. So, in understanding the causes of the Second World War, we'll not be explaining too much about the causes, but let's just go over the popular causes of the world wars. But first of all, let's take up the country that was central to these wars. The country is Germany. Germany was said to be the country responsible for the First World War, and it was also said to be the country responsible for the Second World War. Now, why Germany? You know, over let's say modern history of man, since the Vatican is the one in control of modern history of man as it is today, since the time of the breakup of the Roman Empire, the Vatican hides behind certain countries to do its work. It's been using Germany for a while because Germany historically came from the Roman Empire. When the Roman Empire broke up into the West and East, as we call it today, the West Empire was Germany, and the Eastern Empire was the part of Turkey. So Germany has always been a Vatican state. So, for example, the so-called Illuminati, which actually means the Vatican, was started in Bavaria. And where is Bavaria? Bavaria is in Germany. The so-called person who's attributed to starting the Illuminati, who's actually a Jesuit priest by the name of Adam Weishaupt, lived in Germany, studied in Germany, in the school or University of English taught in Bavaria. Okay, so today the country that the Vatican hides behind to do its work, it's the United States. It was Germany before, now it's moved over and using the United States. So anytime you hear the United States in the media, all you have to understand that it's the Vatican talking. It's not the United States. The United States has been a country that was created and erected by the Vatican after, you know, the woolly-haired Europeans came over from Europe while they were running away from all the conflict and trying to find new lands and other stuff like that. So the Vatican followed after. The Vatican was once black with woolly hair. You have to remember that. So they came with those black woolly-haired Europeans and started conversing with the native aboriginal people who are now claimed to be African American. And then later on, after the albinos from Asia took over Europe, they now came down also using the servants, using those people who had already been traveling between Europe and North America and South America as their servants to have an entrance into the United States. And when they came over here and built a colony, using those same people, then they started inflicting the people around them to produce more people so that they could remain the elite, because they found out that albinism outside of Asia cannot thrive because the culture and tradition of all the woolly-haired people around the world doesn't incorporate inbreeding as much as the Asians do. Okay, so the causes, according to this history right here that we're looking at, you can pause the video at any point in time and copy out this link right here. It says Germany and Austria started World War I seeking European domination, historian says. So it's the article goes on to say Germany and Austria were responsible for starting the First World War, believing they would win European domination. Historian Sir Max Hastings has said. But here's what people don't understand. Austria had always been under the province of Germany. So when they say Austria, it's one and the same. It's talking about Germany. Okay, so let me show you the history of Germany so you guys can really understand what's going on here. But before I do that, here's one thing I want you to pay attention. In trying to understand what the reason was for the world wars, we go into very long detail about it all. We give you a perfect explanation in the book because, like I'm saying, everything that I'm saying here is coming from the book. So the reason for World War One. The best way to understand the reason for the guys watching this video, if you want to get the full explanation, you have to get the book, because I don't want to spend too much time going into detail about it. The best way to know what caused the war wars is to know the result that the war wars brought. So what am I trying to say? If you're trying to get answers to a question and you don't get answers to the causes of what happened, all you need to do is take a good look at the result. The result will always tell you what was the cause and what was the plan. Take a look at the results and you find out what was the cause and the plan. So the best way to explain it is like this. Let's say you try to ask someone to do you a favor. Let's say let me put it right. You try to ask maybe your sister or brother that you live in the same household with to do you a favor. And you told your brother, could you get this from me? I'm going to be back at like maybe 2 a.m., maybe say 2 p.m. in the day. Could you get something for me? And then you come back home and you ask your brother or your sister, okay, I asked you to do something for me, but you didn't do it for me. How come? And when you ask a question, you found out that maybe there is some nice cooking on the kitchen stove or table. So in a normal way to think, when you look at the food and that your brother or sister didn't do what you asked them to do, the only result you can think of without getting the answer is that he was hungry, so he had to eat. So that's why he couldn't do what you asked him to do. Does it make sense? So you always have to look at the results to understand the cause and the causes. Okay. But before we get into to make you understand understand the result of the First and Second World War by looking at the result of it, let's take a look and break down the history of Germany a bit more for you before we can do that. So you could pause the video at any point in time and copy out the link, or just Google what, search. I want to use Google. Get in your search engine and just type Holy Roman Empire, as you see right here on the screen. Okay, I'm reading from Wikipedia. Right, it says the Holy Roman Empire right here, Latin, Sacrum Imperium Romanum. You can see that it says Romanum, that means Rome, okay? German Heiliges Römisches Reich was a multi-ethnic complex of territories in Central Europe and parts of Western Europe that developed during the early Middle Ages and continued until its dissolution in 1806. The largest territory of the empire after 962 was the Kingdom of Germany, though it also came to include the Kingdom of Bohemia, the Kingdom of Burgundy, the Kingdom of Italy, and numerous other territories. On 25th December 800, Pope Leo III crowned the Frankish king Charlemagne as emperor, reviving the title in the Western Europe more than 3 centuries after the fall of the Western Roman Empire. So Germany traditionally had always been part of the Roman Empire. It's always been run by the Vatican. So that's what I want you to get from this, so you can understand that it was part of what they call the Western Roman Empire, because the Roman Empire broke up into two. The Western Roman Empire, we'll just call it Western, but it's really not Western, but we just call it Western, was the part of Germany, and the Eastern Empire was part of Turkey. As you can see here, the religion since 800 to 806 was Roman Catholicism. Okay, don't worry about it saying Lutheranism and Calvinism right here. It's Roman Catholicism. It's the Vatican that runs Germany. So that is the reason why Germany was always used to meet the Vatican, its needs, whatever the Vatican wanted to do, so that people wouldn't know. Because remember, the idea of the Illuminati is to be the hidden hand behind whatsoever they're doing. They don't want you to know that it's the Vatican, because if they make you understand that it's the Vatican who's running the world, then the Vatican has a target on their backs. For example, the Vatican created and invented the Jews, the current Jews that are straight hair with pale skin today that you see in Israel, after they had removed the woolly-haired Jews or woolly-haired Jews from Europe. We put all that information so you can understand it crystal clear inside the book. Like I said, you still have a chance to get the book, or if you send us an email in this first batch that we're going to be sending emails out for the month of March right here. So Germany has always been the name that was used as a front. So just like today, the Vatican hides behind the Jews, and hides behind the United States of America and the Western world in general to use it to run the world, so people do not know that it's the Vatican. So that is the history of why Germany was involved in the First and Second World Wars. So now we have to find out the result of the First World War. This article here tells you the whole truth. It says Germany and Austria started World War I seeking European domination. So the right way to put this, because we know that the Vatican hides behind Germany, hide it behind Germany, if there's such a word, hiding behind Germany, to use Germany to dominate the world in the First World War and Second World War. So it says here, to put it right, says the Vatican started World War I seeking European domination. So before World War I, you have to understand that when the albinos from Asia were invading into Europe by a weakened European black woolly haired European country and a woolly haired Arabian country because of the Crusades. It's the Crusades that gave birth to all of this. So when they invaded into, all these different ethnicities from Asia invaded into Europe and the place that's called the Middle East and Arabia right now, there were different factions, okay? Different factions of the albino Asians that were doing all this. They were not all like together, but they all had one mind. That one mind was, we have to be the superior people, all right, and get rid of our black woolly haired ancestors who didn't allow us rule. So that's the only thing they had in mind, but not like they were working or coordinated together. So when they went into Europe, okay, and then some of this, Asian ethnicities now took over the Vatican and everything else. They always had differences in the way they thought that they should rule. Does it make sense? But the Vatican, knowing that if they can unite the whole Albanic communities together, they would never be able to remain the elite, because they know that genetically, all right, that being albino, having straight hair, is a recessive gene. And when a recessive gene meets a dominant gene in a woolly haired person, it's going to get wiped out. So the Vatican now have faced a problem. The white albino Vatican, the albino Vaticans rather, now faced a problem. They had to unite Europe so that they could use Europe, all right, to maintain themselves as the elite. So they engineered the First World War to unite Europe. That First World War was one of the bloodiest conflicts. And after that World War, a lot of, albino ethnicities in Europe in the First World War came together. But they were still having conflicts among themselves. They were not all on the same page because not everybody agrees, all right, even though they happen to be albino on what's going on, all right? Just because you have straight hair doesn't mean you agree with everybody that's straight hair. But when it comes to the when the elites they only come to an agreement when it happens to concern woolly haired people, because they know that's a threat. If you don't take care of that, you're not going to be the elite for long. So the First World War united Europe. That is the result. So like I'm saying, that's how you get to study stuff and know what's really going on. To have an understanding is, if you don't understand the plan, look at the result. The result will tell you what the plan was in the very first place. Now with the Second World War, they still had differing people or different ethnicities who were not in agreement with the albino Vatican that was running them. And these people happen to be the real Asians, the Asians in the part of Asia, meaning Japan and the rest. They were not in agreement with the other straight-haired albinos on how to run things. Now, people do not understand that the Second World War didn't start in Europe. The Second World War started in Asia. That's what has been totally hid. It's one of those things that has been totally hidden, all right, from people who study history. They think that the Second World War was because Hitler attacked one of the European countries. But this wasn't the case. The World War had already started in Asia. Now, why Asia? Okay, the Japanese have always had like a strong affinity to tribe. Okay, they have never thought that anybody should be able. The Japanese always think that they are the superior Asians. That's the best way I can put it. All right. They were not getting along with other, the idea of the Vatican running them. Their own other, because they are all Asian in the first place, but they didn't have the idea of the albinos in the Vatican running things. So the same thing, since now the Vatican had used had used Germany to unite Europe. They were trying to find a way also to unite Asia with Europe. Because like I said before, if they don't work together, if the whole albinic elites do not work together, without racism, without having unity of race, of the so-called fabricated race that they have, that everybody who isn't woolly head is on their side, they would not remain as the elite. So the Vatican used Germany again, all right, to unite Asia and Europe. That is why the United States attacked Japan. I hope this starts making sense to you. That's why the United States attacked Japan. That's why Japan attacked the United States in Pearl Harbor and brought America into the Second World War. And from there, America landed the fake nuclear weapon, because there's no such thing as a nuclear weapon. They landed some sort of a fire bombs in Asia that got the Second World War down to a close. So the result that you have from the Second World War is that Europe and Asia today right now are together. That's why the Chinese are doing so well and the Japanese economy is doing so well. That is the unity that the Vatican sought. And through the use of Germany, they make that plan come to fruition. Germany now is out of the picture. It's still part of the picture, but the main pieces now is that the Vatican is now using the United States to make sure that they can unite the whole world, which is the final plan. So can you see the step-and-step process? The first process was to unite Europe, which they came into, which was now their new home from Asia. Okay, these guys took over the Vatican. They decided to unite all their warring albino ethnicities together in Europe. They've done that successfully. First World War accomplished. Second World War, they needed to unite, all right, the albino Asians together so they can still have more population to keep on doing what they're doing and remain the elite. And that's now has happened. The third plan and the final plan now is to use the United States, all right, to unite the whole world. Okay? To make sure that they can do that successfully. But this is going to be the plan that fails. I'm sorry to let them know, because it is written that it's going to fail. So that is the reasons behind the world wars. It was the Vatican behind it altogether, using Germany, which has always been a nation of the Vatican. Let me just pull up some more story on Adam Weishaupt, so you can better see that Germany has always been a nation of the Vatican. So I'm on the web page of Adam Weishaupt right here. You can pause the video at any point in time and just go or get on your search engine and just type in Adam Weishaupt. It says Johann Adam Weishaupt, February 1748 to 18 November 1830, was a German philosopher, professor, and founder of the order of the Illuminati. It doesn't get any better than that. Germany had always been a part of the Vatican. As you can see right here, it says, born Johann Adam Weishaupt, 6 February 1748, Ingolstadt, Bavaria, Holy Roman Empire. Bavaria is in Germany. So is the University of Ingolstadt. If you read further on, you see that Adam Weishaupt was a professor of law at the University of Ingolstadt, right? And that was a position that you could only hold if you were a Jesuit. Okay, you could only hold that position if you were a Jesuit, because the University of Ingolstadt was a Vatican university. And you can see here it says, after Pope Clement XIV's suppression of the Society of Jesus in 1773 meetings, the Jesuits, Weishaupt became a professor of canon law, a position that was held exclusively by the Jesuits until that time. So Germany had always been, all right, a country or kingdom, the Holy Roman Empire, that was run by the Vatican. That's why Germany was used in the First World Wars and the Second World Wars to accomplish the goals of what the Vatican needed to unite its warring albino ethnicities against and to protect themselves from getting bred out by the majority woolly-haired people around them, which has succeeded to make themselves a kingdom. So now let's get down into now Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler was used to perpetuate the Second World War. But here's one thing you guys have to notice, and I just have to tell you this out. Anytime you see a transgender in public office or sphere of influence in your world, anytime you see someone who's a transgender, I want you to know for a fact that there is somebody behind that person, and that person is always going to be the Vatican. That means a transgender in public office, in any sphere of influence, whether it be technology, sports, or whatever, is not the person running the show. The real person running the show is the person you do not see. The transgender is what you see. So in this case, if Adolf Hitler, which we're going to show you for a fact, was a woman, was a transgender, that means he was not the one, or she was not the one running things. There was somebody else running. So he was just a puppet. So let's get into the pictures of Adolf Hitler to show you that Adolf Hitler, the person who's being blamed for the mass murders of, the Vatican wants you to think that they're the people responsible for all the murders and suicides and the fabricated 6 million Jews dying, was the one who started the World War all on his own. Is all a lie. It's always been the Vatican and the elite, the albino elites, which do not want you to know the truth of the World War, that it was about uniting the albinic countries, the new albinic kingdoms of Europe now and Asia, which is what you see today, that they're all walking hand in hand and are being very successful. So let's get into Adolf Hitler. Before I get into Adolf Hitler, I actually forgot to show you guys this. This is a web page here. You can pause this video at any point in time and copy out the video. It says causes of World War II, because remember I had said that the World War II started in Asia. It started with the Japanese. It didn't even start with Hitler. It started with the Japanese because the Japanese weren't agreeing to the fact that the Vatican was trying to run them all. They were like, okay, no, we don't agree to this, so we are just going to start attacking them first. And what they did was go over to China, all right, to the landmass of China, and attack a country that's on, I think it's under China today or not. I could be wrong, but I'm not. It's called, is it called Manchuria or so? So that is what actually started the Second World War. Germany's response was just a way, to make sure that everybody else came into play, to make sure that did not happen. Okay, so Germany was used again to cover up that fact and try to unite and try to bring Europe into because even though the First World War united Europe to a certain degree, it didn't unite them as well as they wanted. But the Second World War did. All right, they united. The unification was now total. So in this particular webpage, he says there are many events throughout the world that led to the beginning of the World War II. In many ways, World War II was a direct result of the turmoil left behind by World War I. As you can see here, so World War I was successful, but it wasn't very successful. It was World War II that was going to be the success story of uniting those warring Albanic ethnicities together to make sure that they became one unified race against the woolly haired people, which they think is a threat to their dominance. We still remain one because they remain a threat in the sense that they're not really doing anything, but they just have the power to breed out albinism. That's just that. Okay, so treaty, it says here Treaty of Versailles. It says the Treaty of Versailles ended World War I between Germany and the Allied powers. Then the second thing here, which I want you to take note, says Japanese expansion. So the Japanese were the major problem to that dominance, or to that, dominance of uniting the ethnicities together. The Japanese did not agree. They didn't want the other albinos in the Vatican telling them how to do stuff. They wanted to be their own. They didn't care. The Japanese didn't care. Okay, we know that we are Albanic. We have straight hair and everything else, and we've removed woolly haired ancestors who were a problem or whatsoever. But we don't care whatever else you're saying. That's just where the story ends. We want to do things our own way. You do stuff your own way. The Vatican did not agree to that. They wanted everybody to be on the same page. Otherwise, the elites, they couldn't remain the elites. But the Japanese didn't care. They didn't really care. They said, we'll just do it any way we want. So it was in this. So this was the main problem that they had, the Japanese expansion. It says, in the period before World War II, Japan was growing rapidly. However, as an island nation, they did not have the land or the natural resources to sustain their growth. Japan began to look to grow their empire in order to gain new resources. They invaded Manchuria in 1931 and China in 1937. So the Japanese were the ones who were like, no, we do not agree, and before you guys start taking care of us, we'll start taking care of you. So the whole idea of World War II was to make sure that the Asian communities was brought in unison with the European ones, which it has achieved, as you see today. So let's get back now into showing you Adolf Hitler. So here is Adolf Hitler, the great stooge of the Vatican, which the world has been made to blame was the cause and the reasons for the Second World War, when it was totally something else, and it was the Vatican all behind it, because it's been known right from inception, all right, that the Vatican was singly didn't do anything when Hitler was starting to run over the world and starting to attack countries. They didn't say anything. They make that all up in the media. Now, the Vatican is they're very sneaky sets of people. A lot of people tend to disbelieve the fact that the Vatican is the world power. They think that it's the Jews, which they have made them believe. And with such stories like, such stories as making, for example, the Vatican puts out a lot of information in its media blaming priests, their own Catholic priests, as the ones engaged in pedophilia. The Vatican does that so you guys don't understand that the pedophilia, they try to make the Catholic priests look like they were acting individually. That's in most cases that you hear in the news. The Catholic priest abused a couple of boys or that. They don't want you to understand that it's the whole structure is engaged in pedophilia, and that without pedophilia, the New World Order is going to crash. The pedophilia is what produced people like Adolf Hitler. So I want you to understand that first. So that is a diversion tactic. So people do not understand that it is the Vatican that is involved in pedophilia. They just want you to make you think that it's just priests that do it, and it's not the organization. So that kind of pedophilic activity produces people like Adolf Hitler, which you see right here, who has a Q angle right here that you can see how acute, because when you want to see how acute the Q angle is, just that distance between the way it bends from this hip to the knee, as you can see right here, shows you that you're looking at a woman. Because this is, don't worry about the clothes that he's wearing, which looks baggy or whatsoever. This is the curvature of a female with hips below the crotch, and this Q angle right here is telling you that Adolf Hitler was a stooge of the Vatican. So this should go to show you that transgenderism, or transgendering children, has been going on for ages, because this is like Adolf Hitler way back. Let's say Adolf Hitler was born maybe in the 1920s or thereabout, or 1910s, because by I think 1937 or so, when the World War started, he was maybe 40 or 45 years old. So let's say back it was starting. So that means transgenders have been around in public office for a very long time, and which will show you to a great detail in our book. You still have a chance to get the copies in this first few batches that are going to go out very soon. This month we're going to send emails to those people. Now let's continue on with Adolf Hitler. Some more pictures. Look at Adolf Hitler right here. He has an arch in the back. Arch in the back for Adolf Hitler. 100% female, was never a man. Look at that arch in the back. I know it's not clear enough, but it doesn't lie. You can see right here from the shadow. If you follow my mouse right here, look at that shadow right. You see that? All that is an arch in the back, because Adolf Hitler was 100% female, was never a man in the first place, masquerading around as a Vatican stooge. Here's Adolf Hitler. What do you notice about this picture? Adolf Hitler is trying to find the waist point, but it doesn't exist. Because wherever he's putting his hands on, that's not where the male waist is supposed to be in relation to the torso of this body, because it does not exist. The hands are awkwardly placed because he can't find it. And as you can see, the Q angle right here is below the crotch. See the way it bends right here? It flows and gets wider and wider and wider. And here it starts dropping, right? It starts tapering and turning into the Q angle of a female, because Adolf Hitler was not a man, was 100% female. All right, let's go to some other pictures of Adolf Hitler. Look at that, Adolf Hitler, hourglass figure. This Q angle is below the crotch. Let me try to blow this up so you guys can see that. Below the crotch, below it, because Adolf Hitler was 100% female, was never a man. The greatest monster that the Vatican has portrayed through its history, a stooge of the Vatican, was actually an imposter. That means the whole World War and World II was a fabrication. Because if the foundation of the war, as we are made to believe, is a liar, that means the whole reasons that we are made to believe about the Second World War was a lie, which we have told you what the truth was. So let's go further. Adolf Hitler, again, we already showed you this picture, but you can still see that Q angle doesn't lie. It says all day I'm a female, because you can see that he starts spreading here as a woman does, because that's Adolf Hitler's waist spreads wider, 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 and starts tapering right here below the crotch, to which this Q angle right here shows. Very, very cute. Another picture of Adolf Hitler. We showed you again, so see it again. He can't find the waist point because it doesn't exist, because Adolf Hitler is female. See the way those hands are? That's how a female would try to put her hands on her waist. A man's waist would never be here in relation to the torso of the body. I want you to take a good look at that picture. He can't find the waist. He's looking for it, but it doesn't exist. It's awkwardly placed in the wrong position, because Adolf Hitler is female. We'll show you another very good picture of that. So a lot of these pictures now make a whole lot of sense. For example, Adolf Hitler was never married. Never had any kid. Now, can you imagine that a man with so much power? I mean, when in history have you seen a man with so much power not have a harem of wives and children? Think about it. It's never happened. But here was Adolf Hitler. He didn't have a child. His closest confidant or so was his cousin or something. I think her name was Eva or Ava. I don't remember if she's the lady in this picture that you're looking at right now. But Adolf Hitler had no family, because he was a woman all the time. So a lot of the things that are happening now make sense when you go back into the story. But as you can see right here, Adolf Hitler's Q angle doesn't lie. Let's blow this up so you guys can see clearly that you're looking at the Q angle of a woman right here. Look at that. Below the crotch. And very, very acute. Below the crotch. See how acute that is? That is the Q angle of female. Q angle of a female below the crotch, because Adolf Hitler is 100% female. As you can see, he starts getting wider from underneath his elbows, which is how females get. They start spreading and getting wider, 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 wider. And the widest point right here is below the crotch, from where that acute Q angle shows you that Adolf Hitler was 100% female, was not a man. Here's Adolf Hitler again. Now take a good look. I need to blow this one up as much as I can. It's a bad picture. We had to go through a lot to get it, but it shows you clear detail. Look at where those hand rest is on. That's not the hand rest for a male waist. That is the hand rest for a female. And look at how he curves. I know the picture is blurry, but you can follow my mouse and see he curves. And the Q angle right here terminates and it's below the crotch. And look at how acute that is down to the legs. Because Adolf Hitler was no man. Was 100% female. All right, let's go into another picture right here. Okay, look at that. Adolf Hitler. Is that where a man's hands rest? I mean, just look at the hourglass figure on this so-called killer that annihilated so many people. That is the armrest for a female because his navel is going to be right around here, above the navel. That's his waist point for a female. This was no man. When you start looking at it now, you now see that is the armrest for a woman. That's where the waist point of a female is. If this was a man, it would be farther down. But this is a woman. Look at that. Look at the hourglass figure. Because Adolf Hitler, 100% female, was never a man in the first place. Here's Adolf Hitler again trying to, can you see? This is not how a man puts his hand on his waist. He can't find it because it doesn't exist. He's still putting the hand trying to find the male waist, but it doesn't exist because if this is Adolf Hitler's waist, if you're a man, your armrest should be on the belt because the belt is always located at your waist. It's going to be above it. It's not going to be below the belt as you can see right here. The armrest is going to be above the belt, not below it. Go take a look. If you're a man, when you wear your belt and you put your arms on your waist, it's going to be above the belt. It's not going to be below it. Below it says you're female because you're trying to find the location for your hip if you're a female because the female waist is higher up. So this is what Adolf Hitler is trying to do. It doesn't exist. This armrest should be above the belt if it's really a male's waist, but it's right here on the female hip because Adolf Hitler is 100% female, was never a man. All right, here's another picture of Adolf Hitler. I know it's blurry, but you can see, look at the Q angle right here is below the crotch. Let me try to blow this up as much as I can. I know it's a blurry picture because most of his pictures are in black and white, but you can see it's still the same thing. He's trying to find the male waist, and it's below the belt when it should be above it. And look at this. See how it spreads from underneath here if you're following my mouse down here, and the Q angle is below the crotch, below it, not above it, because Adolf Hitler, 100% female, was never a man. Another picture of Adolf Hitler, and look at this fine hourglass figure as he spreads. And look at how that arm rests right there. This is a man. See where the arm rest is on point, right? Because Adolf Hitler as a woman is going to have shorter arms. So when you put your hands in front of you, if you're female, it's going to go higher up. But when a man puts his hand in front of him, because he has the longer arms, it's going to reach down into his pubic region. In Adolf Hitler's case here, it can't reach down into his pubic region because he's female, born female, masquerading as a man, been sold to us that he was the cause of the Second World War when he was just a stooge behind making the Vatican to unite Asia and Europe. Okay, let's go. Adolf Hitler again. Can you see the way he's sitting? Is that a woman, a man sitting, sorry to say? This is a female. Look at the way it sits. Look at the knees. Look at the thigh. Look at the angle on the chair. This is a woman masquerading around as a man. Who, I don't even know if this mustache was even real. It could have been fabricated also. All right, let's go. Adolf Hitler, look at the way he's walking. This is how a woman walks. He's leaning the weight into the leg that's in front of him and he's swaying. Can you see that? See how he spreads from where this belt is and gets down and gets wider and wider and wider, and then he's swaying from side to side in a catwalk fashion, because that's how females walk. When a woman walks, she's going to try to lean her weight into the feet that's in front of her, because the pubic arch is so wide. The legs have to do two things: move forward and inwards at the same time to balance the weight of the body. And this is what Adolf Hitler is up to, swaying, trying to lean the weight into this leg because she is a female, was never a man. All right, some more pictures, and look at Adolf Hitler sitting, spreading like a female. Can you notice that? See, this is Adolf Hitler's shoulders right here, and look at where the hip is at, farther outside the body. I know this is not a very clear picture, but you can see that this is the hip right here. And look at how he crosses those legs. He crosses it at the thighs. Look at that. Hip right here, shoulder right there. Because Adolf Hitler is 100% female. Was never a man in the first place. All right, Adolf Hitler again. Take a look. Hourglass figure spreading from underneath the elbows. Because we don't usually use this in a transvestigation, because we want you to get the primary differences between the male and female first, which always lies in the back and the hip, before you can do that. Here is what I'm going to put out. With a female has a shorter arm length from shoulder to elbows. Okay? The arm is always going to be shorter compared to a man. Now, because of the shorter length of the arm from the shoulder to the elbow, when a female puts her arm around herself, it's gonna be closer to like her chest and where her bosom is. Okay, and it's going to divide the body in such a way that it's going to be divided in half. This shoulder length from arm to elbow is where it will always land around the west point of a female. And this is what this guy, this so-called man in Adolf Hitler has, which shows you that he's not no man. This is a woman, and he's spreading wider because Adolf Hitler is 100% female. All right, some other pictures of Adolf Hitler. Look at that. Look at how he's sitting. Look at the thighs. I want you to see how the thigh is being exposed. When a man sits like this, you can't expose this too much thigh because the pubic arch is narrower. It's only a female who will have so much thigh showing when she's crossing her legs because the pubic arch is wider. So you see the inner thigh and the thigh much more than that of a man. This is what Adolf Hitler is doing because he's 100% female, with this thigh exposure showing he was no man at all. This is a woman. All right. Some more pictures, and look at that again. See what I was trying to tell you? Adolf Hitler is trying to find the waist point for a man. And look at, he has an arch in the back. Look at how that belt is tightened around. And he can't find it. His hand is below the belt when it should be on top, because that's where the male waist is at. And Adolf Hitler here been masquerading around as a woman for way too long, when he's 100% female, a Vatican stooge. Okay, Adolf Hitler again. Take a look at how he sits. Look at the angle on the knees right there. Those are the angle and knees of how a female sits when a female is trying to sit modestly. Okay, so she doesn't expose too much of her thighs. This is how a female sits. Look at how close those knees are, because Adolf Hitler is a female. Being a woman is genetic. So a lot of things that females do is genetic. It's in their genes, it's in their body. They're not doing it just because they're trying to act feminine or whatsoever. It's just the way they are. So no matter how you try to transgender yourself and you take drugs and all the things, the genetics inside you is still going to be saying, I am a woman if you were one. It's going to be saying, I am a man if you were one. So that's why, for example, you'd see people like maybe Beyonce or Serena Williams or Iggy Azalea try to act feminine, but something just comes out of that action that screams all day, I'm a man, because they are one. Okay, so let's move further to some other pictures. Here's Adolf Hitler again walking. Can you see the arm swing right here? Because when a woman walks, all right, her elbows are going to be falling. From her elbows down are going to be following the curves. So when she swings, she's going to be swinging in such a way that the arms are going to be twisting in some shape or form, trying to follow the hips, the outline of the hips. And this is what is happening with Adolf Hitler with this arm swing. The arms are swinging closer to the body, following the hips, because Adolf Hitler is 100% female. This is not a man where a man swings his arm. Now look at, if this is a man right here, look at the way that arm's swinging. It's swinging outside towards the body. It's swinging away from the body. A female will be swinging towards the body, towards, away towards the body. And this is what Adolf Hitler is doing right here. And look at the way he's walking. All right, the feet right here are still in a catwalk, trying to balance itself and moving into that swaying motion, because it's trying to balance itself. It goes forward and inwards at the same time. And the arm swing is close to the body, because Adolf Hitler is 100% female, was never a man in the first place. And here's Adolf Hitler again. Look at that walk. See that catwalk? See that? The swinging as the leg goes in, trying to balance itself. See how the body is swaying right there, trying to balance itself to this foot, because Adolf Hitler is 100% female. And the arms are following the body. They're not swinging away from it, because it's 100% woman. Okay. Another picture of it. Look at, okay, this one should be very glaring. You guys should see this very, very well. Let me see if I can blow this up. I know it's a bad picture. It's black and white. But you can see this Q angle right here, and the curve that it's below the crotch. Take a look. Q angle, very acute, below the crotch, because you're looking at a woman, was never a man. Look at that, cute Q angle, a cute Q angle below the crotch. Look at the way he stands. Look at this Q angle right here, because it is a woman. Look at that, 100% female. Adolf Hitler was never a man. Okay, another picture. Look at Adolf Hitler again, spreading like a female, hourglass figure. Hourglass figure. And look at this Q angle and how acute, even though he's trying to cover up with clothes. And look at the arm rest. It's way too high up. It should be lower around here, because that's how males rest their arms, because their arms are usually longer. Adolf Hitler was an imposter, was a female, was never a man. Okay, another picture of Adolf Hitler, and look at that acute Q angle walking, trying to lean the weight into this leg that's in front of it. Can you see the difference between the two of them walking right here? Can you see the difference with this other man right here? He's leaning the weight towards these feet, because males lean their weight towards the foot that's behind them. I'm very sure that these are the real Vatican agents who were running Adolf Hitler, and he was just the face that they were hiding behind. Look at how this man walks. Look at how this one walks. He's leaning the weight into this leg. This one is leaning it away, because Adolf Hitler is 100% female. And look at this acute Q angle right here, 100% woman. Let me see if I can blow this up so you guys can see very well. Look at that, acute Q angle below the crotch, because he's 100% female, was never a man. Okay, some other pictures of Adolf Hitler right here. Look at that. Is that a man standing or a woman standing? Look at the way those legs are. That is a female stance. It's not a man's stance. It's a female stance. Still in that acute catwalk stance, because he's 100% female. We're going to show you this picture, but we show you again so you can see it very clearly. Adolf Hitler's trying to find the male waist, but it doesn't exist. His hands is below the belt, below, when it should be on top of it if he was a man. It's below. This waist doesn't exist. That is the hip. And the Q angle, acute Q angle right there as you follow it, is below the crotch. Let me blow this up as much as I can so you guys can see it. See this imposter for the Vatican right here. Acute Q angle, it's below the crotch, because Adolf Hitler is spreading like a woman from underneath the elbows, spreading and getting wider, 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 wider. And here is where it tapers off below the crotch, because he's 100% female, was never a man in the first place. Look at Adolf Hitler, the way it's sitting. Look at those knees. Look at how curvy those knees are. They're not jutting out at angles like a male should. All curvy, and look at the way it slides its legs. Where is the male waist here? It doesn't exist. It's non-existent, because you're looking at a woman with a fake mustache properly. It was never real in the first place. Okay? Adolf Hitler, look at that. Look at how the acute Q angle, even though the clothes are baggy. So it does make a lot of sense that the Vatican designed this German army knowing that people would know that Adolf Hitler was female. So they designed the clothing in such a way that they were wearing these baggy pants. Why? To hide the hips. So for example, if you notice, transgenders in public office always have a bad taste in clothes. They have some of the worst dressed in clothes. You can notice that so through so many United States presidents. We put all that information in the book for you. So you still have time to get the few copies that are going to be out this month. So still send us an email, because we'll be sending emails out to the people who already did, telling them the price of the book and the cost of shipping. So that's why this whole design of bad clothing does exist in public office, because there are so many females being used by the Vatican to run the world. Because when you transgender someone, you make them cease to function as a normal human being. They can only function in the ideals that you create for them. That is how it works. So a cute Q angle of Adolf Hitler walking like a female, trying to lean the weight into the leg that's in front, and look at the way it raises his arms. If you notice, a lot of Adolf Hitler's mannerisms were so feminine. How can someone so strong act so feminine? They can't. They are all covers for the Vatican. They are not that strong. They look like weaklings. Adolf Hitler couldn't do all that he did. He was just a stooge. He was just a cover. All right. His poor soul. All right. Adolf Hitler, look at it again. Look at the way it's walking. Is that how a man walks? Swinging side to side. See, look at the hip swing. It's swinging all the way to the side. And look at this hip swing is wider than the shoulders. The hip right here is wider. If you draw a line straight up, that is wider than those shoulders, because Adolf Hitler is 100% female. Leaning the weight into the leg that's in front of it, because the hips are too wide and it needs to do things, step inside and forward at the same time. 100% female, was never a man. Adolf Hitler. Look at Adolf Hitler again. If you didn't see the hip swing this time, you see it so well here. Look at this. Look at the same swing. Look at that. Look at that. Look at how he's spreading wider, and this is below the crotch, a Q angle, because Adolf Hitler is 100% female, was never a man in the first place. Adolf Hitler, look at this. This is an older picture, but you can see the hips because this particular pants that he's wearing is much more smaller, so you can actually see the curve. This is not the baggy pants that he was wearing before. Baggy pants that the German army used to wear. Look at that. Look at that hip spread. The cute Q angle below the crotch right here, because Adolf Hitler is 100% female, was never a man. Look at the curve on this so-called man. 100% female, was never a man. All right. Adolf Hitler again. Look at that. Still try. Remember what I told you? If you're a man, okay, and you try to put your hands on your waist, the belt always goes around where the male waist is at. And your arm will always be above the belt, not below it like this. Because Adolf is trying to find the waist of a man and it doesn't exist. So he puts it on the female hip. As you can see, even with the way these hands are holding that particular place, you can see how wide those hips are. Because Adolf is 100% female. Was never a man. Okay. Look at Adolf Hitler again. Look at that stance. It's way too wide. Look at how wide this is. This is not just the baggy clothes. This is Adolf Hitler's hips. Because he's 100% female. Was never a man. I'm trying to blow this up. See that? Look at that. How wide? 100% female. Not a man. Adolf Hitler again. Look at that. Look at the Q angle right here. It's below the crotch. Look at that. Q angle below the crotch. Below. Because it's 100% female. I'm sorry if I'm burping. This is a woman. And I'm sure these are the real people running him. He was just a stooge. And look at how narrow those shoulders are. Because, and here is wider. Because Adolf is 100% female. Was never a man. Adolf again, still trying to find the male waist. And it doesn't exist. Because he's 100% female. And not a man. Adolf Hitler, again, that's a woman right there. He spreads, that's his normal waist. That's the waist of Adolf Hitler where that belt is. Because Adolf is female. Never a man. Look at that. Okay. Here's just one of Adolf Hitler's people who were Himmler. This is his name. Himmler is the one right here with the glasses. And we just put this in because we found out he has an arch in the back. And look at how long Himmler's waist is. Because you have to understand, with a female's butt is longer. All right, a man's butt starts quickly and ends abruptly. A woman's butt starts longer because it's all the way down from the middle of the body, middle of the torso, and continues all the way down to the hips. Now look at Himmler right here bending. If this was a man, this butt length wouldn't be this long all the way down here. That's not a man's butt. That is a woman's butt. So Himmler and so many others in the SSS in Germany were actually transgenders. If we find a need to bring up Himmler as a video on its own, then we'll do that. But for now, he's not necessary. Okay, I think that's the last picture that we have today on this particular video. And like I said before, the Vatican wants to shut us down. So please send us an email so we can keep correspondences up with you. And also send us an email if you're interested, because you have the chance to get the first batch of the books that are coming out this month. So please send us an email, because we'll be sending an email out very soon to the people who already did, telling them the price of the book and the cost of shipping. For now, that's just how we're going to be operating on the book. It's not going to, I don't think we're going to make anything public as of now until we get exhausted with the people who send us emails first before we can make a video. So the book is already in print. We're going to be starting sending emails out to the people to get their copies. And then when we've exhausted that email list, then we can actually make a video and tell you how to get it, because the book is not going to be on any website. We're just going to mail it directly to you, and we'll tell you how to make payment for it. So that's it. So subscribe to our second channel, Tricks of the S-Trade 2. In case this one goes down, because the Vatican is hard at work and they might shut us down at any point in time. Subscribe to a second channel, Tricks of the S-Trade 2. And also, if you've learned something, we apologize that it was a long video. We just have to tell you the truth so you understand your world. And so we've come to the end of today's video. If you learned something, subscribe and stay tuned. And we leave you with these words as usual. Look with your eyes, but see with your brain. Thanks, and bye-bye.